Join me as I take on the challenge of making the most delicious chopped caramel crunch balls at home, just like Willy Wonka would. Today we're going to take a baking journey into the world of Willy Wonka with an easy recipe that you're going to love to make at home. If you've ever tried making chocolates at home before, you know how difficult it can be. In this video, I'm going to show you how easy it can be with the right recipe. So the tools that you're going to need to make this recipe are a mold. Now I'm using this mold, but you can use anything that you have that will work for you. You don't have to be making balls, you can make them any shape that you like. You'll need a saucepan and a spatula for doing some mixing. If you're not going to be using a tempered chocolate method and just putting it into the microwave, then a bowl will be just fine. If you are tempering your chocolate, you will need a thermometer, a paintbrush or a teaspoon, and some baking paper and some sticky tape if you're going to be doing the end decorating with me. Okay, the first step in this process is getting your chocolate ready. Now I have tempered my chocolate. You don't have to temper your chocolate. If you would like to though and you haven't done it before, there is a link on the screen. Go check that out and then come back and we can continue. Otherwise you can just put your chocolate in a container in the microwave, short bursts of 10 seconds, just until it becomes nice and consistent. The difference between tempering and not tempering is just the final product. So you will get a chocolate that doesn't start to melt to the touch and that has a shinier finish to it if you temper it. But if that's not an issue for you, you're just making these to eat at home or for the family to enjoy and you don't need that final pizzazz on it, then just pop it in the microwave. So I have mine melted here to 31 degrees. It is ready to go, nice and runny. Now again, I did say earlier, paintbrush or a spoon. Now you can use a spoon to wipe around the outside of your molds. It'll depend on what shape mold you're actually using. Because I want to get inside these though, I am using a paintbrush. And the idea here being just to get in, give it a nice coating. Not a thick coating, just a coating initially so that we can get these into the fridge. Once we've done that, we'll bring it back out again. We'll do a second coat, that way we've got a nice even thick layer on it and we'll be able to get started on the center. So I'll catch you back once I've filled all this. Okay, so that's our first coating done. It's looking pretty good, I think. I can see a few paler areas there, and that's the importance of this second coat. It'll just make sure that everything has at least a decent amount of chocolate on it so that when we try and demold later, they don't crack. So let's go again. Alright, so that's the second layer done. At this point though, if you are using a mold like this or similar, what I would encourage you to do is just hold this up to the light in a few different angles to see if you can capture any areas where the chocolate looks like it's not quite as thick as the rest of the mold. And just apply a little extra layer if you need to. Oh, I see a spot just there. Okay, ready to go into the fridge. I'm going to give this 5 minutes. It's not going to be much more than that. And while we're waiting for this to set in the fridge, we're going to get our chocolate crunch mix on the go. Alright, so now that we've got the chocolate in the fridge setting, it's time to make our caramel crunch center. Now I have made my own caramel. If you would like to make your own caramel and you haven't seen my video on how to make this one before, it's linked on the screen for you. You can, if you like, use a tin of caramel. That's not a problem at all. It doesn't have to be your own homemade one, but this only uses 3 ingredients and it's super quick and easy. So go and check it out. I think you'll love this recipe. It's just condensed milk, dark sugar, bit of butter, so it's really lovely. Now one of the key ingredients for me is the biscuits that you use. You can use whatever you want. You don't even have to use biscuits. You can put nuts in, whatever you decide. Granola would be particularly lovely in this recipe actually. I prefer to use McVitie's Hobnobs and I like the dark chocolate ones for this because it complements the chocolate that I'm using on the outside. You can use milk or dark, it's completely up to you. Just change it out to be how you want it to be. Let's get this layer off here. Oh, it's lovely. I made this morning. It's been resting now, so it's a nice consistency and ready for us to mix. Look at that. Thick, chewy, gooey goodness. Okay. Now, if you prefer for this part of the process, you can use a food processor, but I find this quite cathartic, so let's bash these biscuits up. All right, this is looking like a nice consistency. So you're going to want to get another bowl, because the key here will be adding the caramel to the biscuit until you get the right consistency. If you add the biscuits into all the caramel, you can't take biscuits back if it's too much. So, and you can't remove caramel once it's, you know, save it for anything else once it's got all the biscuits in it. So let's do it the other way around. All right, got our biscuit in the bowl. Let's get to adding our caramel. So I'm going to start with less caramel than I think I need, so I can see what kind of consistency we get. Okay, that's pretty good, and that gives me about half of the mix mixed through, so I'll just double the amount I've added. Okay, so as you can see, I've used about 2/3 of that caramel, and it is quite a thick and sticky mix. But we are now ready to put this into our mold, so let's get them out of the fridge. Now, I am sorry to advise you that at this point, you're going to need to get your hands a little bit dirty. There is no getting that into here without getting a little bit sticky. Now, I think the best delivery method is the teaspoon. You don't want to start with too much, initially just enough to get inside your ball without forcing the mold to have to move its shape. Get a little push down, and then just gently add little bit by little bit until you can feel that your ball is full. Okay, now that we have our molds filled, the last thing we need to do is just come and give them a little coating of chocolate over the top. Try and keep it inside the border of the mold as much as you can, just to seal them off, and then we're going to get them into the fridge. And I would recommend letting these set for at least an hour before you try to demold them, just to make sure that everything is nice and hard through to the center. Okay, I'll see you in an hour. Okay, so we just did the fun part, which was getting all messy and sticky. Now for the nervous part, which is demolding. Oh, there we go. Okay, so they're out of the mold. Hopefully they're looking something a bit like this for you. Now, you see this one's got a little bit of a fracture on it. You might get a couple of like this as well. All this comes down to is when I filled the mold with the caramel biscuit mix on this one, I was too heavy-handed and I broke it. So unfortunately, that one's got a little bit of a crack in it. But here's the beautiful thing about decorating these is you're not going to see that crack by the time it's done. Okay, so if you've decided you want to stick around and decorate, this is where the baking paper and sticky tape comes into play. Now we're going to move all of these onto the baking paper because this next part is going to get a bit messy, and it's just so much easier to be able to remove the baking paper at the end and get rid of all of the mess. The next two pieces that we're going to need is for our tempered chocolate. Now, again, if you've decided that you are just happy to melt it in the microwave and you don't need it to be tempered, go ahead. I am using white and I'm going to use a second color afterwards. So that's why I've got two pieces of baking paper here. Now we're going to create a bit of a piping tube out of the baking paper just by grabbing one corner like so and turning it into a cone. So a nice thin tip down the end, that's the key piece here. So we want this to be nice. So I'll start that again, sorry. Okay. There we go. Nice thin tip at the bottom, roll it around. Grab your piece of sticky tape. Now I find the sticky tape doesn't like to adhere to the baking paper very well. It's just not that sticky. So just make sure the sticky tape touches the sticky tape as it rolls around and it'll give you a nice seal. We want to fold the end in. This will just make it easy to get your chocolate in. And now we have ourselves a little piping cone. So fold the end over. So when we fill it up, the chocolate doesn't automatically start spilling out. And let's get our chocolate. Okay, so I have really, really lovely bright white candy melt chocolate here. Normal melting chocolate is just fine too though. It doesn't have to be of a candy melt variety. Okay. And making sure that the tip is folded over, we want to get some white chocolate in here. Don't want to overfill. There we go. Get rid of that little bit of water that just dribbled off the bottom there. Okay, now whilst this is still bent over, grab the end, roll it over on the outs and the length. This will give you the ability to be able to squish your chocolate down without it coming back out the top on you. You can straighten this out, and this is where you can be as creative as you want. Do whatever style you want. You can do dollops, swirls. Let's just do a little dollop here and let it run off on its own. What I do prefer to do with this though is a bit of a drizzle. And you can see now why I recommend the baking paper underneath. Now particularly on ones where we have a little bit of a fracture, that drizzle over the top with a dollop is going to help you to hide that crack so you still have a usable chocolate treat. Oh, oh, oh. This one's going to be a bit of a spider web type one. We'll do another spider webby one here. Go. And this was another one that had a fracture, so I'm just going to do a bit of a chocolate drip style finish on these ones. Okay. Return any unused chocolate back to your saucepan. Now at this point I'm going to add a little bit of colour to this so that we can get a jewel tone, and we're going to go the opposite way. So, okay, so when we're dealing with chocolate you want to make sure you stay away from adding any liquid whatsoever. I'm going to add a gel to here to get my colour change, and I'm using royal blue. We're going to use just the tiniest little bit because we want to kind of get a bit of a baby blue coloration going here. So just mix that in ever so lightly. Stir with a spatula. You can see that pretty blue colour starting to come through already. Okay, I'm going to roll up another piping bag and we're going to go again. Okay, I have my second colour ready to go, so let's go again. Now you can keep these as simple or make them as elaborate as you want. Little sparkles for our accident chocolates here, just to really help make them look like they were kind of a happy accident. Okay, so to finish these off, I want to add some delicate little flowers to the top of mine. So, still have a bunch of my pale blue icing here. Just got a tiny little dollop just where I want the flower to go. And then push the flower onto the chocolate. So as you can see, our finished product here is just really, really lovely. Now, I'm sure as we've been going through the design process, you've had a few ideas as to how you like to finish yours off. Feel free to pop those in the comments below. I'd love to see what it is you think you're going to come up with. I love to see other people's perspective on how a recipe can be taken and made your own. And if there are any stages of this that you thought perhaps it would have been more beneficial to spend a bit more time on or showed a bit more on, please leave a message below. I'll make sure that I come back through and revisit those parts as well. Okay, so we're all done and they look amazing. This does look like something you would expect to walk into a chocolate shop and buy, I think. I'd love if you could tag me in if you've given this a go yourself and popped it on social media, or even just sent me a picture once you're done if you give this a go. I'd love to see what you do with it. So let's recap what we learned today. We started off with tempering our chocolate or taking the microwave approach. Both work very, very well. We've then mixed our caramel and biscuit together, and in some instances, some of you may have chosen some nuts. Created our molds with the paintbrush method or the spoon, depending on which road you went with, and then learnt the most important thing is the overfilling versus underfilling can really affect the end result. But overall, what fun was that? That was amazing. I really, really enjoyed that process. I got to get a little bit dirty, I got to get a bit sticky, we got to play with chocolate. It was a great time. So thank you very much for watching this video. If you had a great time following along, or you go away and make this and get a great result, please come back, leave a like, subscribe. We're going to keep doing more videos like this here. Thanks and see you next time.